Joining me, CourtTV producer Cody Thomas, and also with us, psychotherapist, host of Talking Live and the Bite Size podcast, Dr. Robi Ludwig. Great to have you both here. Cody, I want to start with you because you're out in Chula Vista, out in Southern California, speaking with Maya's family, her sister and her sister's husband.
I remember I told her in the last camping trip, I said, just be careful. And she said, no, I got Larry. He's not going to hurt me.
And Vinny, you heard there, Richard said that he believed Larry was extremely desperate, and most of us know that desperation can lead to dangerous activity.
Oh, absolutely. Dr. Robi Ludwig, this is the first time I've ever come across this in all my years at CourtTV, that you've got there have been problems between spouses, but here, one spouse trying to get professional spellcasters to put the spell on Maya to bring her harm, but just enough harm so she won't leave him. What does that tell us about Larry?
Yeah, well, I think what the family said is right. This was a man who was desperate. He loved his wife, and he recognized that he was losing her. And the only way in his mind that he could win her back and win her love and respect was to put a spell on her, to have magic somehow recreate his life scenario. And, I don't know if there's a cultural component. There are some people that really believe in spells and magic. Usually when, someone is vulnerable to this, spellcasters will say, we only do positive spells, not negative, but they do prey on vulnerable people. So he must have been searching how to win back a lost love. And this kept popping up, and he felt that this was his best hope, cast a spell and get her to fall in love with him again. And we know that's not the way it works.
Yeah. Dr. Robi, I want to show you something else, some of his alleged Google searches that he made that seem to be somewhat related to this issue. Things like, does subliminal messaging give you headaches? Silent subliminal booster. House. My wife doesn't want me to touch her. And then he's talking about, it looks like he's talking about rupees, Rupanol. What does this tell you about Larry Millette's state of mind?
Well, I wonder if, his grasp on reality was getting lost somehow. If he really, truly believed that what he was searching would truly help him regain a loving relationship with his wife. I mean, most people would rely on the people in their lives or get support or be redirected to counseling. But it sounds like he was a man who really relied on himself, who perhaps had a lot of pride and didn't want to share the challenges that were going on in his life. And perhaps his wife was his only friend. So what did he turn to? Dr. Google, to see if they had the answer to his very problematic life.
Which brings me to our next question, which is all about this relationship and what went wrong between Maya and Larry. Still with me, Cody Thomas, CourtTV producer, and of course, Dr. Robi Ludwig. Cody, you spoke to Mary, Chris, and Richard, family members, brother-in-law and sister of Maya, about the divorce, because that was a big part of this entire story.
I did, Vinny. Speaking with them, of course, we all could come to the agreement that no marriage is exactly perfect. But Mary Chris said about a year before Maya's disappearance is when things started to get a little bit rocky between Maya and Larry.
My question, Dr. Robi, is what went wrong here? This is a couple that married at age 18, married for 20 years. After being married for about 10 years, they started a family, 3 children in the household. What happened here?
Well, first of all, getting married at 18 years old, that is very young. And very often, people don't know themselves entirely at that point. So clearly they had a history, they fell in love, it might have been a first love, but as people grow up, sometimes they grow apart from one another. Or perhaps Larry showed some issues that really undesirable. Maybe he was very possessive, maybe he started to get paranoid. Some of these things, as she began to get older and see that there were other types of people in the world, might have got her intrigued about other relationships. And, we never know what goes on between two people. And it sounds like she was very private And Larry was very private until he got really desperate and enlisted the help of her family. Maybe she needed more space. We don't know, and we may never entirely know, but it sounds like at one point it was very clear to her she needed to leave the marriage.
So if prosecutors have this right, that Larry is the one responsible for Maya going missing and her death, and you're looking at the situation inside that household, right, where Maya is seeking a divorce and he is seeking spellcasters. He wants to stay with her even though she has had some sort of an affair. How do you go from I want her to she's got to go?
Well, I think that there was a dependence there, right? So Larry was very dependent on his wife in order to feel like he was a successful man, a successful father, a successful husband. And he was desperate to hold on to her and maybe believed in magic and thought that spells would be the only way to gain control of somebody who he was losing control over. And very often in these types of situations, there's such a desperation that either I will control you and you will be mine, or you will be no one's. So the thought of a wife leaving and being able to have another life is just intolerable and unacceptable, and they would rather have their partner dead to control their life than to be alive. And so, clearly that's when somebody reveals a lack of health and emotional well-being. And I think that's what we're seeing here.
And we have about 40 seconds here, Dr. Robi. How about the children, the 3 children who are getting older, some getting into their teen years? How do they handle all of this?
Well, hopefully they can get support from their mother, sister, and family. It sounds like they're a very cohesive family, and that they get the treatment that they need so they can talk about this trauma and learn how to live with it in a way that won't be destructive to their lives. And hopefully it will help them, process this horrible situation that shouldn't happen to any child.
Yeah, such a difficult situation. But you get the sense, I think, for this family, and I say family, these 3 children, and what they have to do, is to get support. And hopefully both sides of the family can provide that support for them. Cody Thomas, doing great work as always. Dr. Robi Ludwig, we appreciate your expertise, your time, and your input.